Hi, David. So, a new set of essays from you. Wonderful. Let's take a look at what you've done here. This is the one about shoe sales. So, let's see what you said. The bar chart gives information about sales of two types of shoes, brown leather and black leather, in 9 European countries in 2018. Perfect. With regard to brown leather shoes, Poland sold almost 125,000 shoes, representing the maximum level of sales. Poland. Okay. Countries like Italy, Hungary, Ireland, and Germany sold around 100,000 shoes. Okay. On the contrary, the number of shoes sold by Belgium was around 10,000 shoes. Okay. You could have just said, not on the contrary, but in contrast, the number of shoes sold by Belgium was around 10,000. Full stop, because you just already said shoes. So that would have been a cleaner way of expressing this. Hungary's sales were by far the most considerable for black leather shoes. That's an awkward expression, David. Not the most considerable. You could have just said we're the highest. And that makes it a much clearer statement that now we're talking about the highest figure here. So Hungary's sales were by far the highest for black leather shoes at nearly 150,000. Italy and Belgium showed values of over 100,000. The number of shoes sold by Holland was almost half that of the UK, okay, at 60,000. So what are you telling me, that Holland had 120,000? Let me see. Okay, so Holland's was a 60. So then that makes me believe that UK was 120, but it's not. So you've got some inaccuracy here. Let me see that again. The number of shoes sold by Holland was almost half that of the UK at 60,000. You see, that statement is not really clear. You see that I had to refer to the chart to understand what you're saying here. So Holland is 60,000. That's true, but it's not half of anything really. I mean, maybe it's half of Belgium. Maybe it's half of Italy. You see what I'm saying? So Holland, yeah, I guess that's probably accurate. Holland is half of Italy, but certainly not UK. I mean, the UK is 100,000. That couldn't be any clearer. And Holland is, it looks like it's around 55,000, 60,000, as you said. So I wouldn't have said that. If you wanted to make a comparison like that, which I think is a great idea, by the way, I would have done it with Italy and not with the UK. It's almost half that of the UK. Okay. So here, Holland's apostrophe S, Holland's sales are, what does this mean? Hang on. Holland sales is the double, nearly double. All right, something happened here. I don't know what. So Holland's sales are nearly double those, because it's plural, sales, those of France. Your grammar got kind of mucky here. So Holland's sales are nearly double those of France, with the latter at around 30,000. Let's see if that's true. Okay, so I really liked this attempt so far at making comparisons. I think you've done a really good attempt at this. There are some problems with grammar though. So while your idea is in the right place and you're looking at this appropriately, the grammar is problematic. So I hope that my suggestions on how to fix the grammar are helpful. If you have any other questions about that, then we can certainly look at it in future essay corrections. Let me see. There's something I wanted to tell you about this so far. I know we still have to read your overview. You do that, and then we'll look at this a little more in detail. Overall, for the category brown leather, Poland's sales were the most significant among all the countries in 2018, whereas Belgium's sales obtained the least significant figures. On the other hand, Hungary and France sold the highest and lowest number of black leather shoes, respectively, in 2018. Okay, that's fine. I thought that was a pretty good overview for this. No problems there. One thing that I want to look at here is how many countries you actually mentioned by name. So let's do that now. We've got Italy, Hungary, Ireland, Germany. All right, and then there's Hungary again, and then there's Italy again, and then Belgium, and then Holland is 6, and then France is 7, and then Poland is 8. Did you mention the UK? There you did. Okay, good. So the good news is that you've mentioned all the countries. This might sound a little silly, but you actually do have to mention all the categories. You don't have to give data for all of them, but you do have to at least refer to them in some kind of context. So that was good. That means that you really covered everything in some point. So as I already mentioned, this paragraph for me was probably the weakest of the 4. There were grammatical inaccuracies, and so that led to some problems. What I want to do now is give you an example of how I personally would organize this. You know, this is something that examiners actually do. When we get a task 1 and we have to begin correcting, one of the first things we do is we look at the diagram and we say, okay, well, how would I organize this? What do I think is the most effective, the most efficient way to organize this? So it is important for us to have an idea of how this should or could be best organized. I'm not saying that our ideas are always best, but they're based on our experience, they're usually pretty good. So what I would do here is I would start with my introduction. And then after my introduction, I always start with my overview. There are a handful of reasons for this. There's not a rule that you have to put it at the beginning or you have to put it at the end. Strategically, I put it right after my introduction for a couple of reasons. The first reason is because if you run out of time, then you can at least ensure that you've included your overview. Without the overview, you will not get a 6 or anything higher than that. You won't get a 6 at all. So that's why I put it right after my introduction. This way I know I have time to I'll have done it in time. So fine for the introduction, fine for the overview. Then what I would do is I would start with black leather shoes. Now, why would I do that? I would do that because black leather shoes, actually, if you look at them, they mark the highest figure anywhere in the chart. And so I want to mention that. And for that reason, I'm going to start with it first. So another thing that I would do is I would use these numbers along the side. I think they're very helpful. So my paragraph would start with something like, regarding black leather shoes, 3 countries exhibited sales of over between 100 and 150,000. Of these, Hungary had the highest number at 140,000 shoe sales, followed by Italy with 130, and Belgium at just above 100,000. The fewest pairs of black shoes were sold in France at approximately 40,000. The remaining countries, and then I would name them, UK, Germany, Ireland, Holland, and Poland all sold between 50 and 100,000 shoes. And then I'm done. Then I would do something very similar with the brown leather shoes. So here I would say, in contrast, 4 countries sold more than 100,000 pairs of brown shoes. And then again, I would name them. Of these, Poland was the most, sold the most. And then I would just say what the other 3 countries are. I would say that Belgium had the fewest shoe sales of any shoe type. Okay. And then I would do something similar with those middle numbers. So what I've done effectively is I've signposted appropriately these highs and these lows. And I did it throughout my answer because you did that here. You said representing the maximum level of sales. This is kind of an awkward expression. Maximum means it can't go any higher. And that's not the case. Of course it can go higher. So what you really want to say is representing the highest number of sales. That's a more appropriate expression. Okay? And then here, yeah, you mentioned Belgium, but you didn't mention to us that this is the lowest figure for brown shoes. And you certainly didn't mention that it's the lowest figure of any shoe color, either black or brown. So those are the kinds of things that you want to point out and you want to kind of emphasize in these answers, these outliers, these highs, these lows. Those are important things to really kind of address. All right. So on the whole, I thought you did a nice job of this. I really do. Just giving you some suggestions on what you can do to make it even better, either for this particular task or for other tasks that you will have along the course and in the future. So why don't we take a look now at your task 2, which is this shift away from traditional food towards fast food. Let's see what you said about it. It is often argued by, careful with this, a group of people is a rather limited expression here. Okay, it's as if like maybe there's 10 people in the world who are saying this. So be careful with this kind of expression. Be a little more vague, be a little more general. So it is often argued by some people that in many countries, fast food is getting more and more popular than typical dishes. Okay, if you're doing this comparison, then you don't want more and more. Instead, what you want, fast food is getting more popular than typical dishes. That's what you want. And get rid of the more and more. Moreover, they argue that this type of food will have an adverse effect on the relationship between individuals, family, and society. Careful, you just copied this from the task and you don't want to do that. All right, same words, different order, but same words. The present essay agrees that junk food is having an impact. It's not is having currently this moment right now that we're talking. It has, present simple. So this present essay agrees that junk food has an impact on society's members. However, it is minimal and we cannot deny its increasing importance in our diets. Okay, interesting. I like that. I like that you say, okay, yeah, it does have some effect in a bad way, but hey, on the whole, I think it's really very beneficial. So I'm really interested to read this, and I like that you are kind of in the middle because it leads me to think that maybe this is going to be a kind of more complex essay, one with a little more sophistication. And so I'm excited to read it. I actually like that. With these, to what extent do you agree or disagree essays? I think it is a good idea to be able to see both sides of the issue and to see validity in both sides of the issue. For me, it's the hallmark of an essay that scores a 7 and above. All right, not that it necessarily will, but usually these high scoring essays do have this sort of sophistication of analysis. So let's take a look at what you wrote further down. On the one hand, traditional dishes are an essential part of a country's heritage and thereby show how rich, careful with your grammar, and thereby show how rich the cultural diversity of a society is. You have to be careful. This isn't a question, it's a statement. Just because you wrote how, it doesn't mean that you're going to use question form. So the grammar here should be how rich the cultural diversity of a society is. So subject verb. Particularly, the identity of a country and its members. I think I kind of want it to be are intimately, but you're seeing this as one thing. The identity is intimately associated with their typical food. Careful, you keep saying typical. Maybe you could have used traditional here as well. That would have been a good word. You can use it. You just shouldn't use it like over and over again. You already used typical here, so use traditional here. Let's see. The identity of a country and its members is intimately associated with their typical food. Because of this, some people think that junk food will erase, in a way, part of our cultural richness. However, recent studies in South America show that although we tend to eat fast food, traditional foods cannot be replaced due to their unique and crucial value in our diet. Foods there. Okay, so you talked about society a bit. Fine. Let's see what else you had to say. On the other hand, consumption of fast food is more and more significant in our current society's diet. As we have a busy and stressful life, we do not have enough time to prepare sophisticated dishes, and we prefer to eat junk food, which is easier and faster to get. Therefore, it is undeniable that this type of food is already part of our daily diet. In Peru, for instance, the combination of fast and traditional food is bringing up benefits to our gastronomy, since the diversity of our dishes is enhancing at unforeseen levels. Okay. In conclusion, we have to accept the fact that fast food is a key element in our diets and its effect is not detrimental for the society. Furthermore, a good balance between junk and traditional food is advantageous. Okay, so the great news about this essay, David, is that a lot of the grammar and a lot of the vocabulary were really, really spot on. They were accurate. They were, you had a nice range of things. So, um, as far as those two criteria are concerned, I thought you did a lovely job with this. Where I think your essay lacks is in task achievement. I was really excited by the way you detailed what you were going to talk about in your introduction, but I wasn't really happy with the way this took shape in the actual body paragraphs. So, what did you tell us you were going to talk about? You agree that it's having an impact, but it's minimum and we cannot deny its importance. Okay, so that's what you were supposed to talk about. Here, you were saying something, you're basically saying about the minimal impact of this food on our diet. You're like, okay, yeah, we eat it, but you know what? We still eat traditional food. It's not erasing our culture. You can have both. It's not one or the other. You can have both in your life. So that's kind of what I felt this was about. Is minimal. Okay, fine. And then here you were saying how great it is because of our busy, stressful life. And then what else did you say? It kind of brings diversity to our gastronomy. That's kind of what I understood. So, let me just look at this again. You said it has an impact. The way you said it like this, I thought you were going to talk about the negative impact. You didn't really. I mean, where is there any talk about it having a negative impact? Let's see. Yeah, our cultural richness. All right, you talked about that a little bit. Let me tell you what, for me, the biggest problem is you never mentioned these three elements. You mentioned society, okay, but you never mentioned the impact on society, on families, and you never mentioned the impact on the individual. And so that for me was really lacking. So let's tell you a little bit about how I would have liked to see this essay. Um, Assuming that you wanted to do like the positives in one paragraph and the negatives in another, you could have done it in a lot of different ways. You could have said, for example, um, it's negative for society because our cultural richness is dying out and this affects society as a whole. But then you could have said, that's true, but considering the convenience and the ease it brings to both families and to individuals, this is something that we really need to take advantage of and accept in our lives. And then you could have said something like, for the individual, it's a very quick, satisfying way to get nutrients and a good solid meal. For the family, which is, overwhelmed with different responsibilities and so forth, it provides, again, a meal of sustenance, of nutritional value to the family when time does not permit a traditional meal to be cooked. So you could have said things like that. But because they really laid out for you the layers of society that they want you to talk about, you really need to address them very specifically. So that for me is the biggest issue with this. So that's what I want you to look at. Okay. It's a very good set, but again, there are little things that we have to correct in order to get you to those higher band levels. So go ahead, get that started, correct these, return them back to us, and let's see more work. Okay. Let me know if you have any questions about this. Bye.